Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Ronald Reagan gave this amazing response to the 1998 Democrat National Convention, where of course shenanigans ensued, as is usual with the Democrat Party. But before I get into the video, I want to give a quick shout out to our great sponsors over at Native Path, where their products like their collagen peptides can deliver you a better, healthy life. But more on that later. Now, let's get back into the video.
This week there was a certain meeting in Atlanta, and maybe like me you just couldn't help hearing a few things about it and shaking your head. Some people just don't seem to learn. The American people want to hear straight talk about where our leaders plan to take the country, not personal attacks. For all our history, we Americans have debated our differences vigorously. But like two of the earliest political adversaries in our history, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, while we've always fought hard for our differing opinions, we've honored each other for taking part in the democratic process. This week's convention speakers seem to forget this American tradition. But beyond that, there was something amazing about what we heard. Our liberal opposition seems to think so much is bad in America. To hear them talk, you would never have guessed that we're in the longest peacetime economic expansion on record, that America has created over 17 million jobs in the last 5 years, or that a greater proportion of Americans in the workforce has jobs today than ever before in our history. You would never have guessed that, after dropping by 3% when their party was last in the White House, the real income of the typical American family has grown by more than 10% since the current expansion began. You would never have guessed that our cuts in tax rates and recent tax reform have done exactly what we said they would do. Americans with the most income pay more of our total income taxes than before. Many Americans at the bottom of the scale no longer pay any income tax at all, and growth and opportunity have been born again in America. Most of all, you would never have guessed how much our expansion has meant to all Americans. For example, one respected economic writer noted that for Black Americans, the year 1982 to 1986 represented, in his words, quote, on every front, jobs, income, even household wealth, the best 5 years in Black history. No, listening to the rhetoric, you'd never have guessed America's economy is the strongest in decades. To them, it's midnight in America. It's the same sad song they sang 4 years ago. They say they want to turn America around. When their party left the White House 8 years ago, inflation was at one of the highest levels in American history. Now it's under control. Do they want to turn that around? When they left office, America's industrial productivity was stalled. Our competitiveness was slipping, and technological research, key to our industrial future, appeared to be on hold. Today, manufacturing productivity is rising strongly. Some rate us as the most competitive nation for manufacturing costs in the industrial world, and we're again the world's leader in developing new technology. Do they want to turn that around? The people also know that the last time our opponents were in charge, America did a heck of a lot worse. What do our opponents really want to do? Well, again and again, we've heard from the press that our opposition just won't say. We've heard that they don't want to level with the country because when they've done that in the past, the country hasn't liked what it's heard. So this year, they've learned one lesson. They're covering their tracks. You'll never hear that L word, liberal, from them. They've put on political trench coats and dark glasses and slipped their platform into a plain brown wrapper. But while they're saying that government needs to do more of this or more of that, will they also pledge not to raise taxes? While they're talking about reducing the danger of nuclear weapons, will they also pledge to go forward full speed with our Strategic Defense Initiative, the one practical way of reducing the threat of those weapons once and for all? And while they're talking about the war on drugs, will they also support the death penalty for drug kingpins? The American people expect straight talk about real issues. That's what they deserve, and that's what they ought to get. Until next week, thanks for listening, and God bless you.
I really wish we could go back to politicians like this. That kind of rhetoric is soothing, it is intelligent, it is brief, at least in terms of that time and era, only 4.5 minutes. Now I'm expecting to get entire political talking points in 30 seconds. Man, our attention spans have really gone downhill. But that's not the point here. The point is, in the 1988 DNC convention, where they elected Dukakis and got him to run a very, very poor campaign against Herbert Walker Bush. The Democrats at that time were imploding. They had been the dominant party ever since the Great Depression. And while occasionally a Republican managed to get into office, it would usually be a moderate like Eisenhower, who is low-key one of our best presidents. And then a reformer like Nixon, surprisingly not. This might surprise some people, but I'm actually a huge Nixon fan, because what he managed to do during his time in office was good on both foreign and domestic policy. Hey y'all, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our new sponsors, Native Path. Created by Dr. Chad out of Austin, Texas, he realized that there was something deeply wrong in this medical community. And instead of focusing on nutrition, they were just focused on serving big pharma. So he left and created this new company called Native Path. And what do they do over there? They sell something called collagen. Now, what is collagen? Well, it's not magic fairy dust. It's not this muscle milk. It's not calcium rich. Instead, it is an odorless, flavorless, dissolves completely in water powder that you can mix. And unlike iocane powder, this stuff has massive health benefits. It can help your bones, your joints, your ligaments, your skin, your hair follicles, even your fingernails. This stuff is absolutely packed with the nutrients that we lose so constantly in our modern diet. This stuff is a fantastic supplement, can help you live a healthier life. And if you go to this link down here below, you will find up to 45% off of certain products. That is how much Native Path cares about your health. So go check them out, link in the description below. And now, back to regularly scheduled programming. I do not care about Watergate one bit. I do not care. I know what the CIA is doing right now. I know that I'm probably on a watch list somewhere in the FBI. I'm okay with what happened in Watergate. But what was happening to the Democrats at that time is they had majority legislative control. But they started to notice that the Great Society that they set up under LBJ, and that the FDR coalition and the work that he did during his long tenure, was starting to unravel. See, the Great Society was an attempt to basically alleviate poverty in the United States, create a nice, good social safety net. After about 20 years of those policies, they realized that they weren't working. As a matter of fact, they were having the exact opposite effect. They were basically monetizing poor living decisions and making that tolerable instead of saying, hey, let's incentivize you to not do those things. But what they really found out is that the automobile was the number one reason why poor people stayed poor, or at least it was a huge reason, because it's a lot of time and upkeep. You have to pay for insurance, and it takes longer for you to travel. It does give you more economic opportunities, but if you don't have the access to property and the time on the weekends, that car becomes way more expensive than you think. And so ultimately, what the Democrats had to admit and accept that their policies didn't work. And the Republicans started to slowly dismantle these things. And what they found out was after they were dismantled, nothing changed. It did not matter if you changed a few welfare laws here and there, particularly after Newt Gingrich got into office about 6 years later and started really reforming things at the legislative level. So the Democrats at this time were kind of imploding. They knew that their messaging wasn't working. They had seen just this enormous buildup of the American economy after the malaise of the Jimmy Carter years. And they discovered that pretty much their best alternative was to smear Herbert Walker Bush, who was more moderate than Reagan was. As a matter of fact, Reagan picked him to be vice president because he was tired of his own party constantly poking at him from the sidelines. And that kind of stopped after he picked up Herbert Walker Bush, or Bush the Elder, as my granddaddy used to call him. So Bush won that election in a landslide, mainly because the Democrats didn't have a good plan going forward. But there's some foreshadowing in this video. Bill Clinton gave a weird 2-hour speech that dragged on so long that he was getting jeered at. But my own father, who is a genius in his own right, remembers that speech. And he turned to his parents and said, after this election, watch out for Bill Clinton. He did the exact same thing with Barack Obama when he gave his speech at the, I believe, 2004 convention. He turned to my mom and myself and said, you'll need to watch out for Barack Obama. Lo and behold, he was the next president. So, if you have my granddaddy calling you a cute, fun nickname like Herbert Walker Bush, Bush the Elder, or my father making a political prediction, you know something is on the horizon. And now let's draw this back to the present. The last president we had gave us a booming economy, good tax cuts, sound foreign policy. And the best thing that his opponents could do was run him through the mud. I guess some things just never really change. And as Reagan said to open this thing up, some people just don't learn. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed this segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.